right. Yeah. I was just thinking, Mike, you're supposed to be selling MSP launch. When you start telling people they have to hire a bunch of salespeople, you just lost the audience. I mean, I don't even want to sign up for that. You know what I
They got to
mean?
get all the pieces in place to get there. But
I
the
know.
point, yeah, I mean, like,
I know.
yeah. Anyways, you get it.
I'm just giving you a hard time, but yeah, you have to. That was like we went and spent a day with Robert Hershevek at his office. He's the nice shark on Shark Tank. He has the company's now called Sedaris because he merged with another company, a VAR, and so they're like 1.2 billion in revenue or something like that now. But yeah, that was a shocker because we had about 20 MSPs and they said, well, what percentage of your staff is like sales? And it was like 40%. And everybody's jaw just like hit the floor. And and that's SDR, sales support. That was like the whole thing. But yeah, that's what we're looking forward to. Okay. Good times. All right. So guys, you should be able to see my screen now. And we are on page 12 in the workbook. Do you guys see that? Will, we good?
Yes. Yep. I see it.
Okay. All right. Let me make sure it's there. All right. So moving right along, it kind of ties into everything we were just talking about. Is the essential strategy number 2 is to have correct margins. And so, this is, again, when you sell your services, you got to make sure that you're making enough money. And something we teach people in launch is basic financials and how to what goes into what buckets of cost. And so that way you can actually know, are you charging enough? Are you charging too little? And if you go to page 13, where this is kind of where you're getting paid less than you could. And I'm looking at this and I think I might even add something else onto this. Let me make a note because I do want to go through this. Let me just kind of say it first. One of the things Mike said is, if you are not at the, let's say 150, 140, 150 mark of per all-in seat price, it could be that you're not packing enough value into there, and, that's a way of getting paid a lot less. I think most of you grossly underestimate what people will pay for if offered. If you don't sell it to them, they're not going to come knock on your door and say, hey, you got any, employee awareness training you could sell me, or, better backup, or, they just don't do that, right? You got to sell it. And, I was just talking to Tom Andrulis. Tom's like a $36 million a year MSP, long-term client. And, even he said, clients aren't knocking on our door for this stuff, but when we tell them about it, they're receptive. All right. So we're on page 13. And so have your pen at the ready. So one of the things, obviously, ignorance and stupidity about business financials. And that's really hurtful when I look at it as stupidity. You know what I mean? Well, I'm very hurtful. I was looking at that and was thinking, man.
It happens.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, you just don't know what you don't know. I mean, I was ignorant and stupid at once. I still am about a lot of things, but you get smarter. So copying broke people. MSPs are grossly ignorant, but highly confident. I heard Mike saying about, Reddit, like, you go on there or a lot of these social media sites. And, these are people who are running these micro businesses. I have never seen on Facebook, like I know a lot of really very large MSPs and I know the owners. I do not see them on these on Facebook or Reddit or LinkedIn groups talking about pricing and packaging and like you just don't see it. So you got to know the people who are hanging out there to get advice are typically going to be smaller. Now, I'm not ragging on those groups. They are very good for a lot of reasons. Please don't take this as they're bad. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, if you look at the 80-20 rule and you look at our industry, so 80% of our industry is sub $1 million in revenue. Okay. That's the majority. if you want to get into the top 20% and you want to make money like Will or Brian or even Tom Glover or Tom Andrulis, I was just talking, it's 36 million. The thing you've got to understand is you are never going to get there by copying what the 80% do. It's as simple as that. And if you're hanging out with them and you're talking to them and you're taking advice from them, you've got to understand you are getting a viewpoint from people who are not successful in business. Now, that doesn't make them bad people. That doesn't make them lazy or stupid or worthless, or I'm not saying those things, but you cannot argue that somebody who has been in business, let's say for 20, 30 years and is still under $1 million in revenue is successful in growing their business. I'm not having a morality conversation. I'm not having a human worth conversation. Of course, those people are valuable contributors to society. We love them. We honor them. We respect them that way. But if you're trying to grow a business, you got to be careful who you take advice from. It's as simple as that, right? Selling to broke people. So not only are you hanging out with broke people, you're selling to them. Just poor targeting of right fit customers. You got to fix that. Fear of charging what's necessary. And again, a lot of the pricing we see, they just talked about it, is emotional and fear-based. People won't pay that. I don't know how they're going to pay that. I already get pushed back on my $30 all-in seat price. So it's a lot. It's very fear-driven. Give me any MSP in any town, and I can bet you $100 that they're sitting there swearing they can't sell and manage services for more than $50 or whatever it is. I'll bet you $100 I can find an MSP that has a customer in that area that's spending more than that on managed services. So if that's the case, you've got to understand that you're either targeting the wrong people, you're not presenting it properly, but it's not because it's impossible. All right. Meaning it's not impossible to charge those fees. Giving away services for free, predetermined beliefs about what they're going to pay, zero sales process. That's another area that a lot of people get in trouble with. No differentiation from competition. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Poor self-esteem, lack of confidence. So this is why a lot of MSPs get paid a lot less than they can. And so some of you might want to be filling these things in, thinking about maybe where you're guilty, and need to fix some of those things. So, another thing you've got to start thinking about is stop doing low money work. Okay. Because if you stay so busy doing admin work or low end technical work or whatever it is that you're doing, work for unprofitable customers, you can't make more money if you're stuck with all this low money work. All right. So turn to page 15 of your workbook, and we're going to go over some numbers that you need to know. Now, numbers like these are some very basic numbers, guys. There's a lot more we could dig into, but these are good for now. If you can really master these numbers that we're about to go over, you're really way ahead of the pack. Trust me when I say that. We could get into far more complicated formulas, but for now, right now, top line growth, gross margin, net profit, MRRs as percentage of sales, and some new client acquisition numbers we're going to go through here in a minute. And the reason you want to know that is just like imagine you get on a plane and you're buckled in your seat and you're taxiing down the runway, and the plane takes off and the pilot comes on when you're up in the air and says, "Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Welcome to flight, whatever, going nowhere. We're up here in the sky. I really don't know exactly how high we are, and I don't really know how fast we're going because I got all these dials in front of me and I don't really know how to read any of them. I think we're heading north in general. So we should be kind of heading in the right direction, although I really don't know for sure. And I don't really know how much gas we have in the tank, but I think they told me they filled us up. So we should be okay, but just sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight." You would be in panic mode because a captain of a flight who doesn't know how to read the dials, doesn't know where they're going, doesn't know how high they are, doesn't know what the speed is, doesn't know On course, off course, that's somebody who is going to die in a plane crash. And so you as an entrepreneur need to train yourself on some basic things. So I'm going to give you some financial targets that you should be looking at hitting right now in this economy. And I'm saying this economy, talking about today, this might be different than what you've heard in the past, but I've already touched on this. Your top line growth year over year should be about 19 to 23%, because that's what on average people are growing. Like I said to you, private equity firms are growing 79%. So this is mostly the people reporting this kind of growth are your organic growth MSPs, okay? So your top line should be doing that. Your gross margin, service gross margin should be no less than 50%. Now, service gross margin is your revenue minus cost of goods sold. Cost of goods sold would be your software licenses and tools that you're using, and it would be your labor. Now, you probably are going to quote hardware separate. Hardware is not going to have 50% gross margin. If you are, kudos to you. I think even best-in-class MSPs are getting maybe 20 points on hardware, maybe 25. So you're not going to get as much on hardware. You're going to get some on hardware. Cloud services going to be a little bit different. But when we're talking about projects, managed services, you need to be no less than 50% service gross margin. Net profit's going to be after everything, including your salary, is going to be about 15 to 20%. MRR is a percentage of sales, 70 to 80%. And the owner's salary shouldn't be under 100 grand. Okay. So I don't know how that sits with you guys. Oh, it looks like the chat's blowing up. Oh, maybe it's not that. Okay. I'm just looking at this. Maybe it's the first time. Yeah. Zero sales process. Everyone's kind of saying that. So yeah. So this is kind of where you need to be right now. This is a very, very doable set of metrics. And these are metrics that you should be able to know, you should understand. They should be no problem. Okay. Now let's talk about new client acquisition numbers. I'm going to go through these so you can write them down quickly. Okay. Because you want to write these down. So I'm going to show them all to you and I'm going to go through what they are. So raw leads would be, raw leads is the gross number of leads that you generate from any marketing campaign. So gross number of leads would be, if I look at all my opt-ins and phone calls and cards collected, we're at an event this week. Raw leads is the gross number of total leads that we've got. The second thing I look at are called marketing qualified leads. Marketing qualified leads are leads that came in that fit the criteria of what I consider a viable prospect that I want to do business with. So in my case, that would be an MSP. So if you come to my website, you opt in, you call, you visit us at a booth or whatever. If you are the owner of an MSP, you are an MQL, a marketing qualified lead. Okay. Now, a sales qualified lead is the next level up. Now, the sales qualified lead is a lead that is genuinely interested in talking to you right now about your services. So for example, even on, this session, there's a bunch of you, like the gross aggregate that we had register, I don't know, it was like 450, 500, something like that. We would consider all the registrations for that raw leads. We will go through and we'll look and say which ones are qualified. Oh, this guy's a customer who snuck in, which is, I don't care if it's not like they sneak in. But this guy's a customer, so he's not a qualified lead because he's a customer. So we're not going to do follow up to sell him some because he's already a customer, right? Or, oh, this guy's a plumber. I don't know how he got in here, but get him out of here. We have competitors that show up, so we got to throw them out. So whatever's left over are marketing qualified leads. And then those of you who are on this session who raise your hand and say, hey, I'm interested in MSP launch. I'm interested in talking to you about your programs. And you book a consultation to talk to one of my advisors about your business and whether or not this is a right fit. See, you would then be a sales qualified lead. Okay. Because there are people that might join this webinar and say, I just want to check it out. I'm not ready to do anything yet. Okay, no problem. I mean, I say no problem. It's very hurtful. I will cry on my pillow tonight thinking of you. But you probably don't care. So anyway, so you stay in our database as a marketing qualified lead. We'll keep marketing to you until you buy or tell us to stop. And then if you tell us to stop, we'll stop. But marketing qualified, sales qualified. First time appointments are after you get a sales qualified lead. Let's say you get someone who calls your office. They show interest. They say, I'm looking for a new IT company. You say, great. You ask a couple questions. You determine they're qualified. You book a time to go out and have a meaningful first meeting with them, right? Now that might be in person, might be on a Zoom, but a first time appointment is the first time you sit down to have a meaningful diagnostic conversation about what they need, what their situation is, what their budget is, and whether or not you want to move forward with a proposal. Okay. Sales closed. Obviously that's how many new customers you close. MRR, monthly recurring revenue, ARR, which is a multiple of that by 12, and then total contract value, which if you're signing 3-year contracts, like say if it's $1,000 a month and it's a 12-month contract, the total contract value is 12,000. If you're signing a 3-year deal, it's 36. Okay. So you track these things because these are what are going to tell you where you're, what you like. These are all dials. These are all levers. So you might look at these numbers after you track them and you might say, we're just not getting enough raw leads in the door. That's why our sales, because it all filters down, right? So if your sales are not, if you don't have enough new customers, you got to go back and say, why don't we have enough new customers? Are we going on first time appointments, but we're not closing the deal? So maybe you're only closing. It was so funny. I'm talking about Tom Andrulis a lot. He's like, when he first came to me, he said, Robin, I went on 40 sales appointments and didn't close a single deal. Let me say that again. He went on 40 sales appointments straight. 0 said yes. 41 said yes to some small thing. That's how terrible he was when he first came to me. Now he's running a $36 million year MSP and growing, right? So, but if he said, hey, I'm not closing any sales, but he got 40 appointments. Well, that tells me, you know what? You got good appointments. We don't need to fix that. We need to fix your sales process. Because dude, 1 in 40, holy shit, right? You're gonna be grandpa before you get to even $1 million in revenue. So you got to know these numbers so you know where the money is leaking out of the bucket. Okay. Now I'll share you some marketing funnel metrics in general for our members, right? So in general, 58% of all raw leads that our members generate are MQLs. So this is an average. So like if they look at all the referrals, it might be that 90% of their referrals are qualified, but if they do Facebook ads, it might only be 10% are qualified. So when you're doing an aggregate average, it's 58%. 65% of those turn into an SQL, meaning they book a first-time appointment and they're interested in actually talking to you about IT support. 35% become a paying client. So that's the close rate off of first-time appointment. And the average MRR, like I said before, 2281, and that's not including projects. Okay. So now, if you're a small MSP, here's some goals for you to shoot for. At a minimum, to get you up to speed, I would be going for at least 1 new managed client per month. Okay, so that is not enough that's not going to overwhelm you, but for some of you, that's going to be a stretch because for most of you, you probably added less than 5 clients last year, right? And so adding 1 new client is going to be a good goal that's attainable. That's not going to implode you, but it's going to get you moving and get you the marketing and sales systems in the door. I would also encourage you to have a minimum MRR. So, again, guys, occasionally you're going to get a client comes along and they're $500 a month, and maybe that's fine and it's profitable, right? But you're going to get some clients that might come in and might be 3,000. All right. But I would encourage you to go for no less of MRR than 1,500 per month. And we'll make sure you tell Jeff Farr, because when he comes on later, he's going to yell at these guys and tell them it's 3,000 or something. All right. You know how he is. Okay.
Yeah.
He's
big boy numbers.
Yeah. Okay. I'm saying, let's get you here. Right. And then we can go to the next level. Okay. So that's a good goal to shoot for. Grow. The other thing I would encourage you to manage and look at is how much of the MRR is growing in your current clients. Big general rule of thumb, you should be growing MRR with existing clients by 10%. So if you did $1 million, just for simple numbers, if you did 100,000 in MRR, you should be doing next year, it should be 110. And that's just because naturally companies grow, you sell them more services. At least 35% close rate on first-time appointments. Again, that's what we're seeing as an industry average. So if you're below that, you need to step up. Now, the other thing I'll mention on that, though, you might say, well, I close 80%. I'm amazing at sales. Maybe. Or it could be that you're just getting the lowest of lowest hanging fruit from referrals and whatnot. And when you get out into the real world, where they wake up in the morning, they eat their young, and then they turn on you, and you're trying to get a check out of that person, we might see a different number. So just know 35% first-time appointments is about where you want to be. Obviously, we always want to beat that, and I have plenty of clients who do better than that, but that should be no less than, all right? So if you need 35 first time, that means that would mean if you want to get one new client a month, you would need to have 35 first-time appointments in a year. That's roughly about, now I know rounding up, it's going to mess this up a little bit, right? You're going to need about 3 new first-time appointments per month, which I know gets you to 36, not 35. It's rounding the stuff, right? So that's going to require about 5 qualified leads per month, MQLs. 5 qualified leads is going to mean you're going to need about 8 to 9 raw leads per month. And to get clients that are 1,500 per month, you got to be intentional about who you do marketing to, not just random social media posts. You got to really aim your marketing dollars in the right direction. Now, another little spreadsheet I put together just to kind of show you guys what adding that one new client, $1,500 per month, can do for you is you can see, in 1 year, okay, you can see, like, if you got that one client in January, by the end of the year, you've collected 18,000 on them. February 16, you can see. So the new MRR that you've added is going to be 18,000 in MRR, monthly recurring, 216 in ARR. So the first year you're going to collect about 117,000. That's if you didn't sell them a single project. Okay. Now, if we did 10% ARR growth, so next year we do that, the 216, and we add 10% and 20%, which is conservative. Remember, 30% of your revenue usually comes from projects. So 20% of that is then projects. Second year, you're collecting about 285,000, and that's a total of 402,000 in year 1, year 2. And then year 3, it builds, and so forth and so on. And that's also not taking into consideration that you could get referrals from all of these new customers. You're going to now have 12 new customers, all producing revenue for you. And by year 2, you've got 24 managed clients. And at that point, you want to start looking at hiring an account manager to manage those accounts and continue doing the QBRs and so forth. Okay. So I'm giving you, wherever you are, you want to kind of have some sort of plan like this, so you can start seeing how the growth is going to add to recurring revenue, and it's going to help build stability in your business. Will, do you have any comments on this before I move on?
No, it's all about compounding. Start somewhere, guys. Ideal 1,500, but if you only can get $1,000 a month, start somewhere, build upon that, and then grow it from there, because that compound effect helps you grow the business. That's why you want to do managed services and not break fixed, because you've got that recurring revenue coming in, which feels so good, not have to worry about where you would get paid next.
Right. Okay. All right. So correct. So recurring revenue, strategy number 1, correct margins, number 2. And now we are on essential strategy number 3 and page 17 on your workbook. And I've already talked on this. This all ties together, is get quality clients. Okay. Quality clients, not any clients, but quality ones. Now, a friend of mine and my mentor, Dr. Nito Cobain, one of my favorite quotes from him is, "Who your customer is today is a piece of data. Who your customer should be is a piece of strategy. And so even if you don't have great customers today, you can target different ones. You can go after ones who are willing to spend more money. And part of that is, now I'm about to tell you the real secret to this. It's not a secret, because I'd have to kill you if I told you a secret, right? It would be, you have to get sufficient deal flow coming in so you don't feel pressure to say yes to every client that crosses the threshold. Because if you don't have sufficient deal flow coming in, every lead that comes in, you walk around like it's an egg, and you carry this egg around on a pillow. Oh my goodness, this is the only egg I've got, right? So you've got to, if you have marketing, once you get marketing going, you're going to get leads coming in, and you're not going to close them all, nor do you want to. You got to have a filtering process. But if you don't have enough leads coming in, you end up saying yes to every single thing that comes your way, right? So page 19 of your workbook is not only targeting quality clients, and we're going to talk about that, but it's also, and write this down. It's not in the workbook, and I'm looking at this, and I was remiss. One of the things that most businesses never think about is client development. We talk about employee development, like employee training and employee development. Hey, if you're going to be around here, we want to develop you. We want to have more skills and more knowledge and greater understanding of how the business works, right? You want to do the same with your customers. Customers don't come in perfect. You have to train them and educate them and shape them into being good, raving fan customers. And it doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen automatically. It's something you actually have to work on. And if you notice, many of you, if you're clients of mine, you see the things that we do for client development with the training, the newsletters, the case studies, the examples. So, but if you're not a client yet, hopefully you will be someday, you will come in, we will develop you as a business owner, entrepreneur, to be a better customer for us. Because if you don't develop into being more entrepreneurial and wanting to grow, you are not a good customer for us, because nobody wants to hang around a place where we're constantly talking about success stories and growth if you're not growing and you're not implementing, right? So it's selfish. I mean, it's selfish from that standpoint, but it's also what we like to do. But you want to think about this. Now, there's 4 types of client relationships. We're on page 19. I'm going to click through these so you can write these down. Okay. So the first one is the toxic client. And surprisingly, and I'm guilty of it too, surprisingly, you guys allow a lot of these guys to get in there, right? And they're a giant pain in the ass. The relationship's adversarial. They always complain. They never have money, or they won't spend it. They won't take your advice. And for God knows what reason, they won't go away. Because if they were that unhappy, you think they would just say, I'm out, but they don't. They linger around. And because you're desperate for money, you tolerate getting your ass handed to you time and time again by someone who is very toxic. Okay. So you want to get rid of those people. And in fact, general rule of thumb, you ought to be firing at least the bottom 10% of your customers every year, because if you are restricted by your growth is restricted because you can't, because of engineers and time and so forth, you should never tolerate a bad client. All right. The second is transactional. And this really is based on convenience and price. And they buy from you because they're too lazy to shop you against someone else. They're too lazy to find another provider. And they can easily be taken by a competitor, right? They buy the minimum necessary, no more. You might have this relationship with some of your vendors out there where you're like, you know what? I really don't like XYZ, but you know what? It's too much of a pain in the butt to swap them out at this point. So I'm just tolerating them, or I'm too busy to look for someone else, or I just don't know of anyone better. Okay. So that's a very tenuous, thin relationship, and you got to work to develop it. Now, the third one is good vendor. And these are clients that are loyal because they know you do a good job and view you as a vendor instead of a partner advisor. So they don't really comply with all your advice, They'll refer if directly asked, but they don't rave about your services. Okay. So they're okay. But where you really want to develop your customers is into a raving fan. And they are loyal to a fault because the relationship goes beyond client vendor, right? And they'll do everything you put in front of them. They refer in abundance. They help you. And a litmus test, I'm going to give you two. But another litmus test is like, I mean, look at this webinar I'm doing here. I've got Will on here, Mike Bazaar, Brian Hamilton, and my clients, I'm very careful about wearing them out, but they will do things for me. If I say to them, hey, can you go fly to this event, like a cross country, leave your family, leave your business for a day or two and come out here and talk to it. They're like, I'm there, Robin, just tell me where I need to be. They don't even ask me to reimburse them. Of course I do. But those are the kind of clients in the relationship you want to have. Now, don't abuse it, obviously, or it goes away. But that's the point I'm making. How many of your clients are really true raving fans? And how many of them are toxic? All right. So here's the litmus test. Number one, what's your referral ratio? Now, this is on page 19 of your workbook. Make sure you write that down. What is your referral ratio? What percentage of your clients refer you? Is it 10%? Is it 20%? That's low. You should be looking at getting somewhere in the 70 to 80% client referral ratio, meaning for every client, 70, 80% of your clients refer you to another person, especially when you're small. Now, there's ways to fuel that, design that. Like one of the programs I'm actually, that's in our program is how to ask for referrals and how to fuel referrals and how to reward them. Yes, you need that. But the referral ratio, where I'm using this right now, is as a litmus test of how good of a relationship you have with your clients. And number two, when you send a promotion, your client, now I'm saying promotion, probably a lot of you aren't doing much in the way of promoting things to your clients. But let's say you send them an email and you want to talk to them about a new cybersecurity solution or compliance or whatever. Do they respond? Do they take your advice? Do they buy? Right? You want to, if you have a hard time getting your clients to take your advice, you have a relationship problem. They might still be paying you, but they don't trust you and you have no authority over them. Will, you have anything you want to comment on that at all?
No, that's the biggest thing is they have to trust you. You can't always go and sell and they look at you because we were already starting out in a negative light because the only time they contact us is when they have a problem, right? So you have to overcome that with communicating with them when they don't have a problem. And so, yeah, way to get referrals.
Yeah. Okay. So I just, because here's some things you want to do. There's 3 things I'm going to give you, right? Shameless plug. We teach you how to do this in MSP launch. All right. One is you got to consistently deliver excellence. That goes without saying. I mean, if you're mucking things up, screwing up, not being responsive, you're not going to have a good high trust. They might like you, but they're not going to trust you. So operational excellence, systems, processes, good people, these are things that you need to have in place in order to have a high trust relationship. The second thing you need to be doing QBRs. QBRs is quarterly business reviews. Now, maybe some clients you do them twice a year, maybe 3 times a year, but it's not just that you do them, but you want to really lead your clients. You want to meet with them, not just to say, hey, check in, see how you're doing, but you are their IT department. You're in charge of technology, of data, of risk, of compliance. You want to use these to sit down with them and look at, number one, risk. You should be writing this down, by the way. Look at risk. Where are they still at risk? Data loss, ransomware, compliance violations. Number two, look at stability. Where is their environment at risk for not being stable? Old equipment, needs upgrade, etc. They're not productive. And third would be growth. So risk, stability, growth. lead them, put together a budget, put together a roadmap. Here's where you are today. Here's where we need to go. Be a leader. And then number 3, nurture marketing. So you want to keep educating and developing your clients to be better clients. So webinars, blog posts, training, seminars, and the like, okay? Because this is how you develop a high trust relationship. All right. Will, any questions, thoughts? No?
No questions, but thoughts on that. It's constantly educating. Matter of fact, before this webinar, I did a webinar for my MSP on how third-party vendors and the supply chain can affect you and your clients and how to educate. So it's all about educating. Well, not one bit did we sell on that. Sort of the call to action was, hey, book a time with our chief security officer to talk more, right? We're selling, but through education. So that's where it's important with the QBRs and the nurturing marketing as well.
Yeah. Okay, page 20. Strategy number 4, unique selling proposition, USP. USP, I guess I should leave it there for a second. Yeah, I think Karen she's putting it in the chat so you guys can, quick write down, right? Your unique selling proposition answers the most important question ever, which is, why should I buy from you over any and every other option available to me? You guys know there's a lot of competition, right? And so if you don't have a good answer to this question, this is when you get shopped on price. This is when you get blocked and screened and told we're fine. This is why people are not willing to spend more money if you're higher priced. It's because they cannot determine why they should buy from you. And if you give them no other logical reason upon which to base their decision, they're always going to default to buying on price. It's as simple as that. So we have to develop it. Now, I teach 10 ways to develop a unique selling proposition. So there's more than one way to skin the cat. I will also tell you that it doesn't necessarily have to be intrinsic value, meaning it doesn't have to be that we're faster, we're cheaper, although those things can play. There's a lot of ways you can specialize. It could be through your marketing process that you can differentiate yourself from someone else. All right. So page 22, following along, 4 musts for a unique selling proposition. Number 1, it's got to be unique to you, obviously, because if everyone else can say it, it's no longer unique. Number 2, it's got to have meaningful specifics. You can't just say we're better than the other guys. We're faster, we're speedier, we're quicker, we're more competent. It's got to be very specific. Number 3, it's got to have a strong appeal to your target market, because Southwest Airlines has a entirely different USP than Delta. Okay, they're 2 different brands. Walmart has a different USP than Neiman Marcus, right? So it's got to appeal to your target market, and it's got to be defensible before they buy. Okay, so one of the best examples that hits on all these is actually a story. It's a story about an entrepreneur, and I always tell the story and see if you guys can guess who it is. But it was an entrepreneur that started the business as an orphan. He was or not as an orphan, but he was an orphan. He started the business when he was trying to put himself through college, couldn't afford to put himself through college. And so he acquires this small business on the edge of college campus. Owner dumps on him and says, hey, have at it. So he takes on this business and partners up with a buddy of his. And the buddy is like, okay, here's what we're going to do. You go to school during the day. I'll go to school during the night. You work in the business when I'm in school, vice versa. We sleep on cots in the back. We shower in the gym at the school. Got it. No problem. We're going to do this business thing. Finds out after a couple months, they're not making any money. They're bleeding it out. His buddy, his partner quits. He's like, I'm out, dude. You're not making any money. I need to go someplace I can make money. I got to pay off debts. He leaves. Our hero has to quit school to work in the business full time. Not knowing what he's going to do, he comes up one day with a unique selling proposition, and it's not even fancy. It's a single sentence, but that single sentence turns that crummy little sinkhole of a business from big losses to big wins. And in no time, he started dominating his city, then his state, his region, and nationally, and even today is a well-known brand. Turn this business around from a commodity to one of the biggest brands ever known. Now, in case you haven't guessed it yet, the unique selling proposition was Domino's Pizza, fresh hot pizza delivered in 30 minutes or less, or it's free. And on that unique selling proposition, Tom Monahan built a business empire, and it has nothing to do with the intrinsic value of the thing. You'll notice he's not saying it's organic and made with mama's special family recipe that's been handed down from generation after generation, where we pick the tomatoes on the mountainside when the sun's coming up and the dew is still on it, and the herbs and spices are heirloom seeds grown over in Italy. None of that. It tastes like cardboard. You can't tell the difference from the box and the pizza. Well, that's being, I guess that's a little hurtful. But it's not the pizza, right? So the reality is no one knows how good you are before the sale. Until they buy, they only know how good your marketing is. And so with Tom Monahan, that was purely a growth on the marketing, not on the intrinsic value, because the intrinsic value it's really easy to replicate. It's easy to replicate a pizza, right? Now, yeah, some people do it better than others, and some people have preferences. But, as a smaller MSP, you can outmarket the other guys. You can stand out above. It does not have to be that we have a bench of, 2,000 engineers and have been in business for, since 201 BC. You don't have to have those things, right? There are ways that you can differentiate, and you have to figure that out. For example, one of the areas, I'll give you one, is specialization. So as a small MSP, if I were starting a small MSP, what I would do is pick a very narrow area of specialization, whether it's an industry vertical like CPAs, law firms, or whatever, and specialization. Maybe that's compliance. Maybe that's cybersecurity. I don't know. Maybe it's a line of business in those industries. And I would become the authority specialist on that, because the problem bigger MSPs have is they have to go more general as they get bigger. When you're smaller and getting started, specialization is your friend. So, Will, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, definitely. I came from the mortgage industry, and when I joined Robin was like, pick a target market. I'm like, hell no. I was like, I saw what happened to the mortgage industry. And so don't be scared to pick a target market, but at the same time, don't overthink it. I mean, target it for a period of time if you need to, but don't overthink. I see so many people struggle, like, I don't know what I want for my target market. Hell, throw it against a wall and see if it sticks. Or find something that, if you didn't do IT, what would you be doing, right? Would you be a doctor? Would you be a CPA? Would you be a dentist? Whatever that is, go after what you love outside of IT. Go after those things.
Yeah. So specialization. So just think about, what do you want to be famous for? What do you want to be known for? Okay. So that's one. There's other ways, but that's enough for now. You've got to really think of an answer to that question. Essential strategy number 5, you need a productive team of A players. All right. So I'll give you a second to write that down. You need a productive team of A players. I wish somebody had told me this earlier when I started my business. I want to tell you, if there's something you want to figure out, it's marketing. But then the second thing you need to figure out real fast after marketing is how to hire and find and manage good people. All right. Jack Welch said it best. He said, the team with the best players wins. And so let's think about this. Imagine everybody on your team was a total badass A player, every single one of them. How many of your current problems would you still have? Now, some of you are small. Maybe some of you don't have employees, but I'm telling you, when I talk to business owners who have employees and I say that, they're like, oh my God, every problem I have would go away. And that's because your team and the quality of it is going to determine your growth, your profitability, and your sanity. All right. So as you grow, I can't overlook this. This is not a marketing strategy, but it is a very important growth strategy. Like I said, MSP launch is not just about better marketing. It's about all these things. And the thing I want to warn you of is 3 types of employees that will sink your company. So we are on page 26. I'd love to know You guys can write. Will, I'm sure you've got stories. I have stories.
Oh yeah.
As I go through this, names are gonna pop into mind, right? So on page 26. So number one, believe it or not, and this shocks people, are your stars. Now, I'm not talking about your A players. I'm talking about the prima donnas, the ones that are really good at what they do, and they think they're above the law. And because they think they're above the law, they're rude, they're disrespectful, and they won't follow rules. And because of that, they create problems. So, if you've got somebody who thinks that, they're a great engineer and they know you're short staffed and they know you need them and they're good at their job. Yeah, well, I you know what? I don't always want to come in at 8 o'clock in the morning. I might show up at 8:30. I might work from home. I might, kind of not put my reports in. I might not follow procedures exactly. And what that creates then is an environment where if you let it go, then the whole team falls apart because you cannot play favorites. If you have rules, everybody's got to follow the rules. Nobody gets a pass, right? So your stars can hold you hostage. Your stars can make your life miserable and undo your business, okay? Now, the second on the list are sliders. Now, sliders are employees that at one point they were good. At one point they did great. Now they're failing. Who knows? It's almost always a life situation. They get divorced. They have illness. They have trauma. Some cases, that's kind of their MO. When things start getting good, they have this internal need to screw up their own life. And so they just start subconsciously or consciously screwing things up, right? And you coach them and they can do better, but they're just sliding off. And what we tend to do is we tend to hang on to those people too much. So they started out good, but they slide a little bit more. Sometimes you hire a new person, this happens. They're great at first. And then as you start to give them the job, you start going, yeah, I don't think this was a good hire, but you don't want to go, you don't want to replace them because, oh my God, it's going to be more recruiting and more training and I got to get more interviews and it's already disruptive and all that. I'm telling you guys, you got to get rid of them because someone who's sliding, who's not good, can undo your business. And third are disruptors. And typically they are good at their job, but man, do they love to create drama, and this is another person, I've had someone like that on my team and he was great. I mean, in so many ways, and the clients love this guy. Internally, it was a effing train wreck. People were lining up ready to quit. There was fights, kind of like creating rumors, like this person's doing this and this person said that, and we would confront them and they say, I never said that. It was destroying the fabric of the culture. And guys, you got to get rid of them. All right. So how do you keep, I guess I should ask you, Will, do you have a good story or I didn't even stop to ask you.
I could have a story for all three of those. And it happens, guys. And the biggest thing, hire slow, fire quick. That's the biggest thing. Yeah, because they can cause major issues in your company, and it doesn't matter. I had an employee when I had a sales guy, awesome sales guy, and he would land everything that came. I mean, he was probably had a 85-90% land rate on stuff. But the things I found out after the fact of how shady he was promising, and he was slipping things in, it was bad, and he would show up to work drunk. I mean, it just stories could go on, right? But it was a challenge. Like, hey, I think at the time he was bringing in about $17,000 new MR a month, but he was causing me about $100,000 a headache a month.
Right.
And so even though that he was bringing in business, I was like, I had to make a decision: either my sanity and the values of the company, or dollars. And I forewent dollars for a while just because I didn't have them, but it was a good decision. So yes, believe me, everybody on here probably, if you ever had employees, you probably have all three of them happen.
Yeah. And look, guys, be constantly recruiting. And that way, you have a bench. You have a bunch of resumes that you can call if you need to replace someone. So let's talk about how you keep and attract A players. One is you got to have a compelling vision and mission. Great people want to work at a company that has strong leadership, culture, and purpose. Like, when we're trying to hire a key role, I invite them to one of our events, because what they see is us at our best. They see our customers. They see what we're talking about, what we're doing. I talk about the vision. I mean, we're growing as a company. I tell them, like, I paint the picture. I say, here's where we are today. Here's what we do. Here's where we're going. Here's where I see all the opportunities in the bit. Like, I whiteboard it out for new hires. I literally do this in interviews, and I'm selling them on the company. I'm showing them a bigger vision, and they love that. Good people, they want to work a place that's going somewhere. Think about it. What employee wants to take a job at a place that has no vision, no leadership, and a culture? It's somebody who doesn't want to be challenged. It's somebody who doesn't want to grow. It's somebody who's like, wants to clock in 9 to 5. That's it. Don't ask me to do anything extra. I don't want to work a minute extra. I'm not going to give a minute extra. Vision and mission is what drives people. It rallies your people. It gives them something to focus on. And it can't be just, hey, we're here to make tons of money. Although there's nothing wrong with that. What I'm saying is serving others and building something they can be proud of and doing interesting work. Have a vision and mission. Right now, like after this, one of the things you should really think about, is you have a vision. What is it of your company, of where you're going to be? Share that constantly with your employees. Measure against it, okay? Be ready to pay them enough. Now, there's the thing. You got to pay people enough to take money off the table, because if they can walk into another office and get paid 20% more, 30% more with more benefits, they're going to. You can't blame them. I mean, Will's lost employees. I know I've lost employees where they got paid, they got an offer that was like, I couldn't match. And you know what? I said, hey, congratulations. We gave them a cake, applauded them. Hey, we love you. If it doesn't work out, they don't treat you right, come back. But you got to pay them enough to take money off the table. Now, I'm not saying pay them so much that you can't make a profit margin, but you got to pay people enough because good people, they're worth the money they make. Grow your company. Great people want to work at a company that provides upward career potential. I was just talking to Rashid Bajwa, who is the CEO of Integris, Will, and I think they do about 125, 150 million in revenue, right? Yep. And I asked him about, so he actually started an MSP by himself. Like, he had an organic growing MSP, very good. And he decided to bring together with a platform. He partnered up with a private equity firm, and he decided to start a platform, which is private equity backed MSP. And he said to me, I had reached a point in my business where if I didn't grow and do something bigger, I was going to lose my best people. He said, so a part of what he did in growing, bringing together Integris, was so that he could provide his very best people that he loved to work with opportunity to stay with him and do something amazing. And so great people want to work at a company that provides that upward earning potential, the ability to learn, the ability to earn more. They want a company that's moving. So this is part of why with MSP Launch, we want to get you to grow, because it gets easier to get good people want to come work for you. They see what you're doing, they see their vision, and they're sold on it, right? And then you have to develop a culture of learning. This is my reality. I tell people, I just interviewed a guy and I actually declined him and he was a good guy. I said, you know what? You're too light on your learning. I do not see you being passionate about. When I asked him, what do you do to stay at the top of your game? And this is a high level. This is like a director of marketing position, right? And in marketing, just like tech, marketing changes constantly. Digital marketing, think of all the things you got to stay on top of, from, Google, SEO, analytics, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Clutch. I mean, like, there's a million things that you got to stay on top of. And so in like a good engineer, like, what are you doing to stay on top of your game? When I ask somebody who's going to director level, what are you doing to stay on top of all this? You know what he said? Well, I read blogs. And I said, you know what? You're not a fit. I want passionate learners. I want people who want to learn this stuff because it's like a hobby. You understand? So you got to have that learning kind of culture in your business. And guess where it starts? At the top with you. And you learning technical is not that. You need to learn how to be a better entrepreneur. Okay. You need to learn how to be a better leader. You need to learn about financials. You need to learn about managing and communication and marketing and sales skills. And, you've got to embrace that and say, I want to be a better leader of this organization, of my people, of my clients. And the only way I'm going to get there is if I learn. Okay. I'm going to move on. Hopefully you had enough time. I talked enough so you could write those down. All right. We are on page 28 of your workbook. And another essential strategy, no ones. No single points of failure. Now, you guys are in IT. Well, do they teach that in IT?
Yes, no single point of failure. And it should be the same thing in business as well. If it comes to your appointment setters, your salespeople, yes, you do not want to have engineers. Yeah.
Go to page 29. Here's the most dangerous ones in your business. Page 29. The one guy who can do that around here. You. That's it. It's you. Look, we all start there. I started there. You shouldn't be there 20 years later, 10 years later, 5 years later. What happens, God forbid, if something happens to you? What are your employees, if you have, what are your clients going to do? What is your spouse going to do? Right? You've got to build a business that, God forbid, if you had to step away, short-term, long-term, for something, not vacation. I mean, a vacation would be nice, but you couldn't work. If it implodes, you're in trouble. The one person with the keys to the kingdom, again, is that you? Are you the only one who has access to the bank accounts? Are you the only one who has access to all the critical client data, right? You've got to have a backup plan. The one client that represents a significant portion of income. That's another big, dangerous one in your business. The one way to generate leads. So if it's referrals by luck, see, that's dangerous. The one person who can quote and close the sale. You don't want to be held hostage that way, or the one person for whatever. So one of the things you want to think about as you grow your business is think about a contingency plan. So I got with an attorney, and I really recommend everybody do this. And I did this years ago, but I got with an attorney and created I'm kind of laughing because I think about it, was kind of morbid, but I had to sit down and literally say, if something happened to me, I had to have my executive team be able to take over bank accounts, payroll, etc., and buy the company. So it's morbid because you like have this like, well, what if I'm like comatose for a month, and you know what I mean, and then or like, what if I go into a coma, or I have an injury and I come out and I'm only at 50% capacity brain, you know what I mean? Like, and this is the stuff that's so morbid, but you got to think about this, because what I gave is the option for my employees to buy the company. If that happened, that way they could earn into it. If something happened to me, I would retain some equity portion. They could buy it at a very, very reasonable rate and pay my family as the company continued, right? You've got to think about these things when you're growing your business. All right. So next up, I'm sorry, were you going to say something, Will?
No, I was going to say it's always been important, but especially after COVID and during COVID, I've seen so many business owners pass away for whatever medical complications, and literally they had everything. And these were MSP owners that I knew that were members, passed away, and their wives having to shut down the company because they just don't know where everything was at. So
Yeah, everybody's screwed.
Yeah.
So think about that. And speaking of being screwed, I'm just kidding. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, how are you?
All right. I got our expert in residence, Jeff Farr. He's the founder of the Farr Group. It's an IT strategy and leadership consulting group. And he is an MSP turnaround expert who has rescued a $4 million MSP from bankruptcy and got it to 28% net profit in 3 years, which is badass. And rescued a $15 million MSP from 1% profit margin for 12 years straight, got them to 18.5 in 2 years. So the dude knows how turnarounds happen, about pricing, about metrics, about all the things. And he is going to have a conversation with him and Will. You are going to love it. Jeff is just a fantastic entrepreneur, wealth of knowledge. I don't know where you've been my whole life. I don't know. We finally found you.
Same here.
And then after they go, so I'm going to take a little break. But after they go, we're going to get back to essential strategy number 7. And this is a big one. I'm not going to tell you what it is. All right. But it's a big one and you want to stay for that. And just as a reminder, again, this is all of this that you're seeing is just a sample of the content and the experts that we bring to you in MSP Launch Academy. So we have new sessions starting, like I said, at the very end, after we've given you all the value and earned, hopefully, the right to welcome you on board and invite you on board as a member. We're gonna give you an offer at the very, very end. It's going to be really good. But if you wanted to check it out just kind of in advance, go to msplaunchacademy.com. And at the end of this webinar, I am going to make you a phenomenal offer that you can't refuse. All right. But in the meantime, you're going to hear from the expert in residence, Mr. Jeff Farr, and of course, Will Nobles, who is our expert in residence and one of the coaches that you get access to as a member. So keep that in mind. If you like what this guy has to say, you get access and coaching from him. So Will and Jeff, I'm going to turn over to you guys.